will go. Okay. Ah, good. Now I can see you all. That's good. So we're just waiting for some people to come out of the waiting room or out of a group, and then we'll start. One or two people have got very long hair from being in lockdown, it has to be said. One or two people have got manes such as I've never seen before. Whereas me, when we were on 3-year retreat, Vijayamana had to learn to cut my hair, poor thing. So I get my hair done at home now. Anyway, this isn't terribly exciting, is it? So how are we doing for numbers? Getting there. So. Lizzie, have we still got people in the waiting room? Are we all...
No, everybody who has appeared is in. Some people might dribble in, but I think you were good to start.
Okay, thanks very much indeed. So, welcome back. Welcome to this session, which will usually be session 3. And this morning we started in, and once we got some of the practicalities out of the way, I talked a bit about the background to the mind training from different points of view, including how, yeah, there is a deep kind of history of selflessness in our human past, and how even, yeah, really, really young children, given the choice, if they've watched a puppet show or something with a selfless and a selfish puppet, will choose the selfless puppet when they're given a choice, those sorts of things. But then we also looked at wisdom and compassion coming down from the Buddha, down through the whole tradition to Shantideva and Atisha and his disciples in Tibet, to Geshe Chekawa, who spent 12 years really practicing and absorbing this material and putting it into this 7-point mind training. And right at the end of the session, I was talking about it being important just how we talk to ourselves about this project of opening our hearts, opening to the world, finding our way out of ways of selfing. Yeah, because sometimes we can talk to ourselves in quite sort of fixed and almost slightly hard ways, which really don't help. Yeah. So if there's a sense of, if we talk to ourselves in terms of, you know, a self and going beyond the self or going beyond the ego, the sort of message that we're communicating to ourselves is that there is this sort of fixed thing that's like, it's like a kind of roadblock on our path to enlightenment, and we have to somehow kind of, you know, sort of find something big enough to sort of shift it out of the way, or some way of kind of blowing it up or something. And that way of approaching things is just going to be too clunky, too rigid. It's not going to do justice to how things are, because how things are, as we know, is that everything is flow. We don't find a fixed self that we have to somehow go beyond or find our way out of. Yeah, we find that mind operates in different ways, and our heart opens and closes, and at times mind sets up a sense of a self here that everything revolves around and closes down around that. And at other times, perhaps a few minutes or an hour later, it's operating in a much freer, more open way. So there's just these movements within mind, these sorts of inward and outward movements of energy. So if we see things in those terms, then we start to be able to feel the currents of our being, like currents in the ocean, and we'll find different ways of approaching ourselves, different ways of talking to ourselves about how to practice in a particular time. And we won't have a sort of one size fits all sort of way of looking at things. So there may be times with our Dharma practice where we're really talking to ourselves, challenging ourselves, really, yes, let's go and adventure. Let's go out of our comfort zone for once. Let's really, go out and explore and just see what we're capable of. At times that will be really what's needed. At other times we may need to sort of parent ourselves almost. We may need to really kind of coax ourselves incredibly gently. Let's just, okay, it's nothing you have to do. It's all fine, but let's just see if we can do a little bit of this. Let's just try it out. How's that? Okay, well, just gently. We need to have all sorts of ways of listen. Well, we need to really listen to how we are, and then find the approach, find the way that encourages our heart to open more now, that encourages us to not close down around this sense of me at the center of things and everything else and everyone else out there. How can we soften that? So you get the idea. So because everything is because we are flowing, because we are constantly different. Okay, how do we operate now? And the Dharma is just all these kind of ways that we can draw on, to find the way of encouraging that movement of energy where the heart opens, where we expand, where there's more freedom. Okay. And I often say on these retreats, it's really good in between the sessions to just keep track of that energy movement, that sense of selfing, whether there's more selfing going on or less selfing going on. Or another way of looking at that is just, well, how is my heart now? How is the heart? Is it open? Is it closed? And it's not that we're making judgments about that. We're just seeing, okay, this is how it is. So what does it need? What will help? And just finding, perhaps something quite gentle, or at other times something a bit more robust. That's what's needed now. So we really get to listen to ourselves very deeply. We get to know the currents of our energy, the currents of our being. Okay, so this afternoon is quite a short session, and I'd like to take us into the territory of Tonglen, which is, there are probably always going to be a few of you who won't have practiced this giving and receiving before, but the great majority of you I've been on retreat with and know that you have done it. It's part of our bodhicitta practice that we had a retreat from Adhisthana on a few months back. It's this giving and receiving where we're opening the heart to life and taking away suffering more and more from ourselves, from others, and eventually from the world. And we're giving, we're sharing whatever's helpful, whatever's beneficial, whatever resources are needed, whatever will be freeing and enable people to become more and more open-hearted, more and more joyful, whatever they need. And this giving and receiving is summed up in one of the verses of the one of the pieces of advice that I'm calling it of the 7-point mind training. So we alternate giving and receiving, and we put it on the breath. So we use the breath as a support. So I'm not going to go into lots of detail about it, but we will do this practice in different ways over the days, quite a lot. There are some resources on our webpage that you can look at. There are some pointers for practicing Tonglen, which gradually built up over the years. And I mentioned there is also Nageshwara, who's on this retreat, kindly a while ago went through a lot of the different retreats that I've done that are on Free Buddhist Audio, and he picked out the guided Tonglen meditations. So, and he's given a list of those and where you can find them. So they're a resource also for if you want to explore more. There are different ways of approaching Tonglen. So Tonglen is a Tibetan word, just to be clear. Tong means giving and Len means receiving, accepting. So Tong is the giving, the sharing aspect, and Len is receiving, accepting, taking in, taking on. So you can do it from everyday you, as it were. So everyday you sits down and goes into meditation, and you contact a feeling of metta, and you send out whatever helps people, whatever resources them, whatever they really need to be freer, to be happier, and you take away the suffering. You take it in, and it dissolves into your heart. But for a lot of people, practicing from that level is quite hard going. It's how I first practiced this taking and receiving when I first did the practice back in the 1970s. It can so easily fall into, here's everyday me, and I don't really have much in the way of resources to give out, and I'm having to take on all the difficulties of the world, and that's completely overwhelming, and I can't sustain it. So another way of practice, and the one that I'd recommend, is that we practice in a way not practicing from the everyday level. We draw on the resources of the refuge. We draw on the resources of awakening. And it's like we let that do the practice. We open to the inspiration, we open to the blessing, the adhisthana of the refuges, of the Buddhas, of Ayidam, of this lineage of inspiration coming down from Atisha, and we let that do the practice. And we can do that by putting that in our hearts, so to speak. Yeah. So when I lead the meditation, I'm going to talk about us having a refuge in the heart, and right in our heart center. And that's the word refuge in terms of the practice will be shorthand for whatever person or yidam or Buddha or Bodhisattva, whatever it may be, for you really carries the feeling of the qualities of awakening, really embodies love, compassion, freedom, wisdom, patience, generosity, fearlessness, etc., etc. Yeah. So we're going to invite that to be in our heart, and then that's going to do the practice. because that is what's capable of taking away the suffering and dissolving it into that sort of fire of wisdom. So it just goes. Yeah. And it's that great love and great compassion which can really have an impact on the world, which can really transform the suffering of the world, which can really be of benefit. So we're going to let that refuge, as I'm calling it, do the practice. So I hope that's clear. Yeah. And if you've not done this practice before, and I don't sort of explain enough over the next day or so, so that you feel like, oh, I'm not quite sure where I am with this, then by all means, drop me an email, drop me questions, and we'll work it through. Yeah. But a lot of us have done a lot of this practice already, so I'm not going to go in great detail into giving and receiving, but it's central to the mind training. So we'll keep touching on it in different ways over the days. Okay, is that clear enough for everybody? Anything that I need to just clarify before we start? Yeah. All right then. In that case, let's do some practice. So once you've settled into your posture, again, just relaxation. So to do this kind of practice, we need to be able to draw on resources. And the first resource we can always draw on is that sense of support from the earth. Whenever we need to in meditation, we can always come back to those qualities of stability, support, that unshakable quality of the earth. And we can draw on the resource of a posture that's as helpful as we can manage. Helps us to be comfortable, helps us to be aware, helps our energy to flow. Now for a minute or two, bringing awareness into the body. As much as possible, letting it be a field of kindly awareness. And we can draw on the resource of being aware that we're not practicing alone. We're all of us practicing together. Doesn't matter where we are in the world. We're all linked, we're all connected. As if there's one practice that's going on. Being aware of that as a resource, let's just wish one another well. So the body is a field of kindly awareness, but there's this much greater field of kindly awareness of our collective practice that we're all participating in. Now let's come into our heart center. Now let's invite into our heart a refuge. So whoever, whatever, for us, most strongly embodies the qualities of awakening. Could be the Buddha, could be our Yidam, Could be some great teacher. Whatever figure intuitively feels right to us, or if it really doesn't feel right for it to be a figure, then it could be some symbol, could even be just a sense of all these qualities gathered in our heart center. Now, to strengthen that feeling of refuge in our heart, the qualities in our heart center, let's do what we can to tune in to the sense of those qualities being catalyzed, being actualized down from the Buddha himself, down through so many practitioners in the early centuries of Buddhism, then including the Mahayana, all those who really committed themselves to the Bodhisattva path. To people like Shantideva, Atisha, his followers, Geshe Chekawa, all the mind training practitioners in the Tibetan tradition, all those who practiced great love, great compassion, whatever tradition they were in. Can you imagine, think of particular teachers, practitioners, or just have a sense, this great stream of bodhicitta, this great stream of awakened energy, all these qualities flowing down through the centuries. Although in a way outside time. And opening to that influence, that adhisthana. Inviting all that into the refuge in our heart. So the refuge in our heart becomes very potent. Great wisdom, great love, great compassion. And this meditation has mainly been about gathering all the qualities of awakening, all that energy in the refuge in our heart. But just briefly, and just let that refuge meditate. Let the bodhicitta work its magic. With each out breath, there's love, there's compassion, there's help. It's all kinds of resources going out to all of us meditating together, out into the world. And with each in-breath, all the struggles, all the conflict, all the aches and pains, all the frustration and so on, of everyone meditating together and of all kinds of beings. It's taken in with the in-breath and completely dissolves away. It's completely dissolved by those awakened qualities of the refuge in our heart. And now there's been a sense of us doing something. We let it go. Just relax. Don't have to stop anything happening. Don't have to make anything happen. Just aware experience. and the merits of the practice we share with one another. We share with all life. Okay. So that's it for this session. And in the next session, we'll start looking at the pieces of advice. We'll start with the first one. So I hope to see you there.